Hey, how's it going? I'm Dr. Mike Trubetskov, the mad scientist of metal. And today I would like to share with you some of my favorite and best free plugins for recording and mixing metal and heavy stuff in general. I just want to help you navigate the process of selecting the plugins, as there are so many available these days, and I frankly think that we are blessed to live in the age where plugins and technology are so amazingly advanced that there are almost no limitations. And I'm not affiliated with any of those manufacturers. These are just the plugins that I use on a regular basis, and I still use, even though I have a lot of paid and high-quality plugins. These still remain on my productions and my mixes, so I just hope that this would be helpful for you. Maybe you are just starting out and not sure which are the best plugins to start with, or maybe you just want to expand your plugin and toolbox arsenal. Without too much talking, let's just dive into it. Plugins that I'm taking a look at today go into the following categories: guitars, compressors, EQs, and saturation. Let's just jump straight into it and start with those guitars. The first guitar plugin on my list is ML Sound Lab Amped Roots. The guys have recently released the second version of this plugin, completely free. It is a guitar amp simulator, and it sounds good. It emulates the infamous PV amp, suitable for modern metal, and it delivers great tonal response. Have a listen. Starting point. So, you get the gist. It's a nice modern metal tone. As a downside, it doesn't sound overly dynamic, so real amp would still respond to your right hand a bit better, but you know, for a plugin, it's a very high quality plugin. The plugin also allows you to select a cabinet out of 3, as well as a microphone. You can go quite far with that. And also you can disable the cabinet here. All in all, this is a great plugin, flexible, easy to use, free, will fit in the mix nicely, and can serve you as a blend. I use it a lot while mixing lead guitars lately. Now, the second plugin that I would like to highlight is Ignite NadIR. I'm using this all the time, and this is your impulse response loader. Frankly, it just serves to all that I need in impulse response loader. You can blend 2 impulse responses. For instance, if you have a SM57 on one hand and maybe a condenser mic on the other, you can blend them nicely here. You can also blend some room into the mix, and you can tweak the sound a little bit by introducing resonance, high and low pass, etc. And to me, it's just simple, flexible, and I do not need anything else, frankly, to get quite cool guitar tones. Flexible, and I do not need anything else, frankly, to get quite cool guitar tones. So these are cool and useful guitar plugins that I still use very often in my mixes, and I recommend these to you. Let's take a look at some compressors now. So this has been a bit of a surprise for me, but IK Multimedia have made their Comprexxor, which is an emulation of a distressor, absolutely free if you participate in apparently a studio speaker survey. up until 22nd of September. So technically it's not a free plugin, but it is free now for almost 2 months. So go and grab it right now. It's just invaluable. Distressor is the compressor for modern metal, and I recently got a universal audio one, which is pretty sick. But let's just take a look at the IK one to see what it offers. I'm gonna use it on my snare. Have a listen before. I disabled some snare compression, so it sounds kind of weak. Now let's take a look at what this plugin is capable of. Here you go. Quite a modern interface with lots of features. Let's just see how we can smash that snare. Exactly what you would expect from a distressor. And you can do a lot with this. It's a flexible compressor. To me, it has a possibility to smash material a bit more than other compressors. For instance, 6:1 ratio for some reason doesn't sound too overboard, which is interesting, but it's just a type of compression applied here. And yeah, you can do a lot with it, and normally it goes for more than £100, I believe. So just go grab it and use it while you can. Now, the second compressor that I would like to introduce you to is Audio Damage RoughRider 3. This one here. Now, this one is a very, very strong compressor with an incredibly aggressive character. I don't think that I have any other compressors that are capable of doing this, so I use this a lot on my parallel kick and snare for extra smash. Let's see what we can do with this. Aggressive character, modern and clean, no specific distortion introduced, just smash. As a bit of a downside, this detection display is a little bit odd, and you have to get used to it a little bit. But overall, for free, this is just a killer deal. So get this one as well. If you're mixing, you need a compressor and definitely a good EQ. And while the built-in EQs in your DAW would be really solid these days as well, regardless of which DAW you're using, there may be some features missing from those stock EQs. And while I was still saving up for my FabFilter bundle, maybe 5 years ago, I can't really remember, I was using this TDR Nova EQ with great success, as it has a frequency analyzer built in, as well as dynamic EQ capacity. And that's a really, really important feature to have. Let's have a quick look. So here's your interface. And I just bypassed all of the guitar plugins so that they sound raw. And you can straight away notice that there is some boominess at the low mids here. So now we're able to control those low mids and not quite cut them too much, but leave them be when they're not over the board and let the EQ tame them down when they are overpowering. This is a very useful feature in your modern mixing work, regardless of the genre. Heavy genre, though, particularly. So this one is a good EQ for starters if you need a dynamic EQ. Limitations, though, it only contains of 4 bands, and these bands do not go super surgically narrow, although they can go up to Q of 6. Fab filter can go much tighter, and that's a little bit of a limitation here. But again, as a free EQ, you can do so much with this. If you want to spice things up and flavor them a little bit, I recommend another free EQ, but rather than a surgical or dynamic type of EQ, this one is a coloring, analog, modeled EQ. Let's take a look at this freeware analog equalizer by Acustica Audio. I personally have a love-hate relationship with Acustica Audio. Their plugins sound quite bloody amazing and I use a lot of them, but these are not well optimized for Pro Tools, which I normally use for mixing. Therefore, it kind of stutters a lot and crashes a lot for me, so I'm trying to use them a bit more sparingly now. However, this EQ doesn't seem to be the case that much, and although it is taking up some of the CPU, it's not too bad. And just have a listen to how this sounds. I think it sounds pretty tremendous. It adds a really nice top-end sheen without sounding harsh at all. And the plugin also introduces a preamp from a certain analog machine. And as far as I understand, this is not a modeled plugin. Instead, it is a sampled plugin. So what Acustica did, they took some sort of analog equalizer and they sampled it at different settings, and then they just approximate the way it behaves by using computational algorithms, which is really cool, and I think it's the way into the future for plugin manufacturers. So they were pioneers in the field, and I think they're doing quite well. They just need a bit of a optimization happening. Lastly, quite an indispensable tool in your mixing arsenal or recording as well is saturation. For free saturation, I would highly recommend Softube saturation knob, it is called. Let's take a look. So it's quite a small sort of interface, but let's see what it does on bass. So let's try the saturation knob on drums as well. What I really like about this plugin is the way it shapes and contains the transients and add saturation that sounds really nice. There are downsides to the plugin though. There is no mix knob, which is a big downside for such type of processing, so that I cannot, for instance, put it on my snare bus and just blend to taste. And there is also no automatic volume compensation, so that you add saturation, it becomes louder. There is no way to contain that. This is not very convenient. As a solution, though, you can just use it on a separate bus and blend to taste. Have a listen in the mix. as a parallel enhancer, this is a really, really cool trick. Highly recommended. So, I guess this is it for the current selection of 7 great freeware plugins. Go grab that IK Multimedia while it lasts. And I sincerely hope that you find this useful and that you would be able to apply this in your next productions or mixes with great successes. I just want to share what I use and what I find useful, and hopefully I save some time for your research as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments, and I will leave links to those plugins in the descriptions. Rock on!